Hello everyone, this is Ali MK Hindi, and the video that I'm going to be doing for this week is, well, actually over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be looking at from chaos to clarity, the literature review process. So this is a diagram I put together a few months ago on what I think are the 5 key steps you need for the literature review process. So number one, you need to decide on the type of review. That's what we're going to talk about this week. And then once you've done that, you want to develop your search strategy, and then moving on to selecting your information sources. What is the optimal way of doing that? And then data extraction. And last but not least, synthesis of results. And then I'm going to go a bit on how you present your findings. So for this week, we're going to look at deciding on the type of review. And upon realization from being in academia for a while now, many people, particularly those who are new to academia, think that there's only 2 types of review, which is the narrative literature review we're familiar with, or a systematic review. But that's not the case. There are actually a lot of other reviews. I've mentioned scoping and rapid reviews, but there's at least 5 other reviews that you could deploy or use depending on what your goal is. And that's very important because a lot of people overlook this step. And it's actually a very critical step. So that's what I want to get into. We'll do a short exercise just sort of to hammer the point across. So let's say I am a newly starting PhD student, master student, and I want to look at doing a review on looking at the impact of mindfulness-based interventions on stress reduction. So let's say that my key focus was I want to provide a broad overview of the available research and identify key themes, trends, and gaps in the literature related to mindfulness-based interventions and stress reduction. So maybe I'm writing the background of my dissertation or the introduction of a paper, and I'm not really concerned with doing a systematic approach. I don't have a very specific question in mind. And as I said, I'm not really concerned with rigor in my search process. I just want to gather the key themes and trends. So in that case, the best approach would be to use a narrative literature review, the one we're familiar with. However, on the other hand, let's say I want to employ a more systematic and comprehensive approach, and I have a very specific research question in mind. So I want to look at the effectiveness of mindfulness-based interventions, and I'm also interested in identifying potential moderators and mediators. So see, there's a specific research, goal or objective. And at the same time, I want to also evaluate the quality of the existing research. So in this context, it's best to use a systematic review. Now, something that I want to sort of raise awareness to right now, particularly in the healthcare policy context, something is coming into, they're using more often is a rapid review. So basically, rapid review is just an reduced or a watered down version, for lack of a better word, of a systematic review. So we still want to do a systematic approach and of the literature, but we're short on time and resources, and we need to get evidence to inform policy as quick as possible. So that's when a rapid review comes into play. It's still the same research question. You're still doing it systematically, but you're omitting or reducing some of the steps that we do in a traditional systematic review. So let's say instead of using 3 databases, I'm going to use 1. The critical appraisal procedure, I might not use it, or even if I were to use it, I might use a very quick way rather than a long critical appraisal tool. So in essence, you're doing a systematic review, but just quicker, and you're biasing some of the steps. Now, moving on to the last one, let's say that I'm interested in exploring the state of knowledge in the field. I want to highlight key findings and identify gaps in the literature, looking at mindfulness-based interventions. I want a somewhat systematic approach. So I'm interested in doing this systematically, but I don't have a very clear, specific research question in mind. And I'm not too interested in appraising the quality of the literature. So I want to use some systematic approach, but I don't have a very clear, specific research question. But I'm hoping that this review will identify gaps, which will then lead to me having a specific research question. And in that case, I will be using a scoping review. So what I basically wanted to get at in this literature is notice how it's all looking at the same topic. We're looking at the impact of mindfulness-based interventions and stress reduction, but based on what my objective is, I will be deploying different reviews. So for the first one, for instance, it made more sense to do a literature review. In this instance, the second one, a systematic review, or if I was short on time, I'll be using a rapid review. And last but not least, a scoping review if I was more interested in mapping out the literature in a somewhat systematic way, but I don't have a specific question. So that's why it's really important to understand the different types of reviews and which one might be best for your research question or objective. Anyways, thank you for your time. That concludes the video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, share, comment, repost, whatever it is we do on LinkedIn, sorry. And hopefully next week we'll move on with developing a search strategy.